Good morning and welcome to Oceans Live at Chow. I'm your host, Kate Thompson, and we're back live at the Museum in Washington, D.C. for Day 3 of Capitol Hill Ocean Week 2013. If you're just joining us, the first panel session of the day just wrapped up, called Blue News, What Gets Covered and Why, which explored how the news media affects ocean and coastal issues. Stay tuned throughout the day as we bring you more coverage of Chow, including our Capitol Hill Ocean Talk Roundtable at noon. First, I'd like to acknowledge the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation and their co-hosts, the Pew Charitable Trusts, along with the rest of the event sponsors and the Chow 2013 Honorary Congressional Committee. Thank you as well to NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries and the University of Rhode Island's Inner Space Center for supporting our Oceans Live broadcasts. And of course, a big thank you to the Newseum for their hospitality as our Chow hosts. The Newseum offers visitors an experience that blends 5 centuries of news history with up-to-date second technology and hands-on exhibits. Now I am pleased to welcome to the studio 2 honored guests, retired Admiral Jay Cohen of the U.S. Navy and the Director of Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, Daniel J. Basta. Admiral Cohen entered the Navy in 1968. Serving as a distinguished 38-year career that included time as a submarine commander and the chief of the Office of Naval Research. He retired as a Rear Admiral in 2006. That same year, he was appointed Undersecretary of Homeland Security for Science and Technology by President George W. Bush, a position he held until 2009. Dan Basta has been with NOAA for more than 3 decades. As the director of NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries since 2000, he has overseen the growth of the National Marine Sanctuary System through new site designations and expansion of existing sanctuaries. He began his career as an aerospace engineer and accidentally found his way to the oceans 40 years ago. Admiral Cohen and Dan, thank you so much for joining us for Oceans Live today.
Our pleasure to be here, Kate.
Accidentally found your way here. Wow.
Yeah, stuff happens, you know.
So the last time all 3 of us together, I believe, was in 2005, and we were hunting for the Navy's first submarine, the Alligator.
Absolutely.
I don't think we were able to find it, though, unfortunately.
Haven't found it yet.
Haven't found it yet.
That's
and most recently, the Navy and the Office of National Marine Sanctuary just interred the sailors for the Monitor. Was that correct?
Yes, it is. Correct. It's a very big event for the country, right?
It was pretty amazing. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. And I'm just going to ask you a few questions today. And please ping off each other, and we'll have a good discussion here. So, Admiral Cohen, your career has focused on the ocean. Why do you think symposiums like this are so important to the community?
Well, they're critically important. I mean, the reality is the oceans cover over 70% of the Earth's surface. We know more about the backside of the moon than we know about the ocean floor. And of course, since the Navy operates in the ocean, on, under, and over the ocean, and with our Marine Corps component from the ocean, expeditionary, going in the littorals and to the beach, etc., knowledge of the oceans has been critically important to us throughout history, whether it's the tides, the currents, the winds, etc., and most recently with our ballistic missile submarines, understanding the bottom topography so that we can covertly ensure that we have the best navigation. And in fact, it was the Navy studies that gave us the insight into seafloor spreading in the 1960s and explained the various rings of fire and the earthquake concentrations, etc. So from the Navy's point of view, it's where we live. But I think as a citizen, more important, the reality is the oceans give us food, they control our weather, and to a large extent, they give us life. And so we need to know more, we need to be more focused, and that's why it's such a pleasure to work with NOAA and with Dan, a fellow New Yorker, a fellow scuba diver, someone who has become a friend over the years, and as a government civil servant, apolitical from administration to administration, keeping his eye on the prize, and these national maritime sanctuaries that Dan has been so critical in getting the Congress and the administrations to put in place are just a wonder to behold, starting with the Monitor, of course, and there's another Navy connection.
So Dan, national marine sanctuaries, you always say that they're America's best hope for saving the ocean. Why is that?
Well, it's because how we as human beings think about things, actually. The ocean, as Jay pointed out, is so large and vacuous, it's very hard for people to get their mind around it. I mean, what could I possibly do? How could I even understand it? Places, special places in particular, give you a sense of scale. They give you a reality to compare to yourself. You can explain things in that scale of context, and you can understand your relationship to them. So if we really want to get citizens of the world to understand oceans and then to act as individuals and organizations, it's through places. It's not through the biggest idea of help me save the ocean. Save places I know about. They add up. You will save the ocean a place at a time. That's why.
Right, so Admiral, being in the Navy for a long time, how do we balance the need for national security with the desire to protect these national marine sanctuaries and marine life and ecosystems?
Well, I think they're very complementary. In fact, healthy oceans makes for healthy economies. The United States is, in fact, a maritime nation. We may have land borders to the north and south, but the Founding Fathers realized this when they wrote the Constitution. It says in the Constitution that we will raise an army as necessary, but we will maintain a Navy. And, of course, it doesn't even talk about the Air Force. But be that as it may, the oceans are our lifelines. They are our lifelines in terms of trade for our citizens. They are a source of recreation. They are a source of great wealth. The coastal zone, which, of course, is immediately affected by the oceans, the weather, the hurricanes, tornadoes, etc. All of these things are critically important. When we get into the marine life, the maritime life, fisheries is really not a focus of the United States Navy. That is much more under NOAA, Department of Commerce, etc., and is regulated by international agreements, etc. When we get into marine mammals, like dolphins and whales, etc., as Chief of Naval Research, I can tell you I spent more, and we're talking about millions and millions of dollars, than any other organization to study the effects of sound, not just sound from Navy sonar, but general sound in the ocean from the incredible amount of sound that tens of thousands of ships transiting the oceans are putting in, electric power plants that use ocean water for their cooling, research to find gas and oil deposits, etc., to ensure that we understood what the limits were. And it turns out that marine mammals are extremely complex. Almost every type of dolphin in that species has a slightly different methodology of hearing. Some are almost identical to our ears, and others are quite different. So if there were an event when dolphins or whales would wash up, we would actually send people. As a Woods Hole oceanographic graduate, we used Woods Hole, but we also used Brand X, as they call it, Scripps, but other universities and oceanographic institutions. We would fly them real time to do a necropsy to bring back those dolphins. And in fact, we used cutting-edge Siemens and General Electric magnetic resonance imaging, similar to what we would have CT scan to understand what was happening. And then the Navy adjusted its operations so that to the maximum extent we could, balanced with training and real-world requirements, we were sensitive to the impact of our operations on marine mammals. So, and that continues today. So the oceans are critically important to national security. They drive our commerce. We believe in freedom of the seas, etc. We're deployed worldwide all the time. And we operate in conjunction with the NOAA fleet, which is very important to us in giving us the knowledge and the data that we need to operate safely and effectively.
Admiral, you had mentioned the use, and recently Stellwagen and Bank National Marine Sanctuary did a bunch of research on sound and right whales and strike issues, and they actually moved the shipping lanes.
Yes.
So that to me is a perfect example of marine spatial planning and how it can all work and how we can better address that issue through working with multiple people, including universities and Navy and other groups. So on that, Dan, why is it so important to have this dialogue with Navy and others on these ocean issues?
Well, you just said it. You know, it's a team effort. Navy in particular is very important, for sure. If you look at where we've put the investment in science in the oceans, it's mostly in the Navy, actually. And, you know, the Navy and the uniformed services have a lot more things they do for the country than just fight wars. They're all about the net social welfare of America, like anybody else. So those investments really are the harbingers of things that we use every day. When Jay was over at O&R, he was absolutely gracious in allowing Navy assets to be applied to other kinds of problems. If you go on a Navy base, I think, and you look at their environmental programs, you will see they have some of the most sophisticated and effective environmental and natural resource programs in the world. It's like a little secret, you know? The one issue that I have, I want to use more of that. I want to have more access to that. And we are starting to have a lot of dialogues with Navy on this, but we haven't pulled enough of what they're learning and what they actually have created. They have lots of terrific tools into what we do. We need to do more of that. And I think with the wars winding down now, I think there's a greater opportunity to do that intersect. So, Jay, you got to go back to O&R.
Well, you're very kind. They do invite me back occasionally as an alum. But I will tell you, there is a great synergy between the Navy and NOAA. And the reality is that the Navy does have large, white-hulled oceanographic research vessels. They are very sophisticated. And they can go places and operate where NOAA may not be able to operate. And so we get the bigger world picture, and we're able to integrate those two. And it's a little bit like the relationship that the U.S. Coast Guard enjoys with the U.S. Navy, where the Coast Guard is more focused on our coastal area, and the Navy is looking at power projection overseas. But we interchange those roles on a regular basis.
We also do joint projects. I mean, we have a very long-standing relationship with Navy diving.
Yes.
And Navy salvage. We talked about the Monitor, the burial, but we actually recovered that 10 years ago. That was a 3-year major project. And I think, and I might not be correct on this point, but I think 3/4 of all divers in the U.S. Navy at that time went through that project to help us recover the turret and the other parts of the Monitor.
But, you know, Kate, one of the things I'd like to talk about a little bit, and we just had an hour-and-a-half session on Blue News, and I think it really captured, you know, the challenge of how do we engage people to understand the impact of the ocean on them. You know, Walter Cronkite once visited my submarine when I had command, and may he rest in peace, a wonderful man. And he said, Admiral, or Captain, Commander at the time, he said, Captain, he said, is it true that most of your sailors come from the Midwest? And it was absolutely true. They come because they've never seen the sea.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's something new and exciting, et cetera. But, you know, what inspires young people, our future, or the youth of America and the youth of the world? We're internet connected, Facebook, Twitter, there are no secrets, et cetera. We see things going viral. And so, you know, one of the things that was an epiphany for me when I was at the Naval Academy as a midshipman, Jacques Cousteau. Jacques Cousteau came and talked to us for 2.5 hours. He showed black and white films from the 1930s when he's inventing scuba, et cetera. And of course, I'd grown up following the Calypso, et cetera. And then Jacques Picard, you know, Jacques Picard and the Trieste, and, you know, the Navy, Don Walsh diving, you know, down to the Challenger Deep, which has just been repeated now, all those many years. And then I had the pleasure of being at Woods Hole with Bob Ballard, and Dan and I both have made adventures with Bob Ballard, and Bob can find it or not find it, but it's still an exciting show, and if he doesn't find it,
it's going to be fun.
It's an advertisement for his next show. And what he's doing in Rhode Island and with the Jason Group and bringing the oceans into the classroom, and Dan and Noah working closely with him. And so now we've got video cameras and the ability of kids in Kansas to literally operate over the internet the cameras in our maritime sanctuaries and see what's happening. That's what is exciting to me. The Navy has a very strong role, junior ROTC, Reserve Officer Training, in our high schools, also in our colleges. But this is the kind of thing that I think Dan is trying to do. We need to do more of that, is capture the imagination. We need Smokey the Bear of NOAA. And I know Dan has experimented with different caricatures, et cetera. But we will get there. We will get there. But it's our future.
Yes, it is. And I couldn't have said it any better. And I'm actually going to end with that, because it is the future of our generations to end the ocean, is to find these ocean champions. Like Jacques Cousteau, like Robert Ballard, like Sylvia Earle,
right,
to take these stories forward. And you both are ocean champions. So.
And there's someone out there, a young person, who will be that person.
One of those scuba nauts that was out there.
Absolutely.
Right.
What came out of today, clearly, session, and for what we're talking about here, is we can't put our hopes on looking to find a couple of clever champions. This is a distributed way in how we work and operate. To be a champion, you do not have to be on the national stage.
That's right.
Or on CBS. You need to be a champion where you are, in the moment with what you do. And building that sort of ethos, I think, is where it all goes.
Right.
It's hard to find a Jacques Cousteau. We've been trying.
Well, everyone.
Well, we found a Jay Collins.
And we have a Dan Basta, and we have a Kate. So.
Yeah, right.
And we've got a great team.
Right. It's up to each of you to do that in your own backyard. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks,
it's been
Kate.
a pleasure having you on Oceans Live.